Love is supposed to conquer all. But what about when it conquers the calendar spanning entire generations? From Hollywood's elite to music industry icons, these celebrity pairs are living proof that age is merely a suggestion. Whether they're separated by a decade or a staggering 41 years, their romances ignited public gossip, drew skeptical stares, and ultimately challenged every convention. So prepare yourself to delve into the most daring love stories that looked Father Time right in the eye and refused to back down. Which of these couples discovered lasting love, and which ones simply found controversy? Let's start with the story of David Foster and Catherine McPhee. When a legendary music producer becomes captivated by a singer with a once-in-a-generation voice, you get more than a hit record. For David Foster and Catherine McPhee, the chemistry they found wasn't just confined to the recording booth. It marked the start of a completely unforeseen romance that blindsided absolutely everyone. Their initial encounter was all business. The year was 2006, and a 21-year-old Catherine was a breakout star competing in the finals of American Idol. David, who was already a titan in the music industry, was brought on as a guest mentor to guide her through a powerful performance of Whitney Houston's I Have Nothing, a classic ballad he co-wrote. At the time, their connection appeared to be strictly musical, nothing more. As the years went by, Catherine achieved stardom only to see her career eventually cool down. Meanwhile, David kept producing chart-topping hits and adding more Grammys to his collection. But the next time their paths intersected, the dynamic had shifted entirely. She was no longer just a young contestant on a reality show. She was a mature woman with her own life experiences, and he wasn't simply her former mentor. He had become someone who truly heard her. Their significant 34-year age difference immediately became the central topic of conversation, and the gossip mills went into overdrive with ugly rumours about her being a gold digger and him having a midlife crisis. The situation even prompted one of David's own daughters to make a light-hearted dig on social media, sharing a bikini picture of Catherine with the cheeky caption, "When your new stepmom refuses to dress her age." While the public rolled their eyes and made jokes, the couple themselves remained completely unfazed. Catherine firmly held her position. She confronted the negativity head-on, armed with sharp responses and an unshakable confidence that silently declared their relationship was genuine. David, for his part, was a steadfast presence, always smiling by her side on every red carpet and firmly holding her hand through each public controversy. Ultimately, in 2019, they exchanged vows during an intimate ceremony in London. There was no media circus, just two people separated by decades, but perfectly united by their love. In the end, for David and Catherine, while music was the catalyst that first connected them, it was their shared courage that truly cemented their bond. Next up, a rock and roll romance for the ages, Steven Tyler and Aimee Preston. What do you do when the person who manages your schedule also captures your heart, and your relationship generates far more scandal than support? Do you retreat from the spotlight or embrace the controversy? For the iconic Aerosmith frontman Steven Tyler and Aimee Preston, a woman a staggering 41 years younger than him, the choice was obvious. They decided to face it head-on. Their story began back in 2012 when Aimee was brought on board to be Steven's personal assistant. At just 23 years old, she was sharp-poised and remarkably efficient. Steven, then 64, was the quintessential rock star, wild, erratic, and perpetually addicted to the energy of a live performance. For several years, their relationship was strictly professional as they worked closely together, but beneath that professional exterior, a deeper, more personal connection was quietly forming. By 2016, the quiet rumours had exploded into bold tabloid headlines. Steven Tyler is dating his assistant. The public's reaction was swift and sceptical. It wasn't just that Aimee was decades younger. She was also 11 years younger than Steven's own famous daughter, Liv Tyler. This massive age difference was a fact that was simply too jarring for most people to overlook, and frankly, most didn't bother trying. Detractors labelled the relationship inappropriate, with some even calling it creepy. Many others cast suspicion on Aimee's intentions, but none of the noise seemed to bother either Steven or Aimee in the slightest. They confidently walked red carpets, linked together, posed for pictures with a calm assurance, and completely refused to acknowledge the public chatter. For Stephen, this relationship was about more than just love. It was about feeling truly seen by someone who could comprehend the whirlwind of his life and make the conscious choice to remain by his side. And for Aimee, the number of years between them was irrelevant. It was all about the profound connection she felt, that electric, once-in-a-lifetime spark that you just don't find every day. To this day, they have not announced any official plans to get married, and it's quite possible that they never will. Yet, for almost a decade, this unlikely pair has consistently defied public expectations, proven their critics wrong, and remained a solid couple, demonstrating that sometimes the most unconventional romances are also the most genuine. Now for a Hollywood romance that was as turbulent as it was talked about, Megan Fox and Brian Austin Green. When a rising teenage actress becomes involved with a beloved Hollywood actor, nearly double her age, the public conversation is bound to be loud. And that's precisely what happened with Megan Fox and Brian Austin Green, a duo whose love affair was intensely passionate and incredibly divisive from the very beginning. Their journey together started back in 2004 when they first met on the set of the sitcom Hope and Faith. Megan, at just 18 years old, was witty, breathtakingly beautiful, and just beginning her ascent to stardom. Brian, at 30, was a well-known former teen star who projected a much more reserved demeanour. There was an immediate and undeniable chemistry, and despite their 13-year age gap, Megan was completely smitten. However, as news of their budding romance got out, so did the wave of public disapproval. The public opinion was harsh. Many felt he was far too old for her, while others insisted she was simply too young and impressionable to understand what she was getting into. Tabloid magazines were filled with judgmental articles that questioned Brian's motives and Megan's maturity, yet the pair paid no attention to the scrutiny. Defying everyone's expectations, they announced their engagement just 2 years later. But then the relationship hit some serious turbulence. By 2009, they had briefly broken off their engagement, only to find that some powerful force kept drawing them back to one another. Then, in 2010, far away from the prying eyes of the media, they were quietly married in a private ceremony in Hawaii. For a time, it seemed like their story was a Hollywood fairy tale, albeit a complicated one. Their dynamic was famously intense and far from perfect, but it was also built on a foundation of deep loyalty. Over the course of their marriage, Megan and Brian would go on to have 3 sons together. But beneath the surface, significant problems were developing. In 2015, they shocked many by filing for divorce. Then, almost predictably, they managed to reconcile one more time. Their romance played out like a perpetual cycle of breakups and makeups, a whirlwind of intensity and fragility. But eventually, even their story had to reach its final page. Megan found a new path forward. Brian did as well, yet what remained in the public memory wasn't a bitter scandal, but a profound, bittersweet sense of mutual respect. They were 2 souls who fought relentlessly over and over to keep their love alive under the unblinking eye of the world. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes, even when a love is deeply authentic, it simply isn't meant to last forever. Dennis Quaid and Laura Savoy. When a 65-year-old icon of the silver screen becomes smitten with a 26-year-old doctoral student, the tabloid headlines practically invent themselves. But from the beginning, Dennis Quaid and Laura Savoy were determined to write their own story, ignoring everyone else's opinions. Their paths first crossed at a professional gathering in 2019. There were no flashing cameras, no glamorous red carpet, just an unexpected connection between 2 people who on paper should never have fallen for one another. Laura, a brilliant and poised PhD candidate, had absolutely no history with the celebrity world. Dennis, the perpetually charming actor with decades of fame and a history of 4 marriages, certainly wasn't on the hunt for a new romance. Yet something profound clicked between them. Their relationship accelerated quickly. By the time the world caught on, Dennis was already proposing on one knee during a trip to Hawaii. Their engagement was absolutely real, but the public backlash was equally intense. The 39-year age gap became an immediate and sensationalised news story. Online critics expressed their disdain. Viral memes began to circulate. Even his most loyal fans were left wondering, seriously? But through it all, Dennis remained completely unfazed. In a candid interview with The Guardian, he explained, "I can't even find it in me to be angry. People are going to see things through their own lens." He simply stated, "I'm genuinely happy, and that's all that truly matters." He wasn't trying to reclaim his youth, and she wasn't seeking fame or fortune. Their bond wasn't founded on public drama. On the contrary, it was built on a foundation of genuine comfort and ease. Laura wasn't merely his partner, she became the source of his tranquility. In 2020, the pair exchanged vows in a quiet ceremony at a seaside resort. They avoided the media frenzy and the tabloid circus, opting for a simple, heartfelt promise: we choose each other. And perhaps in a world that demands constant justification, that is the most revolutionary act of all, to love someone without feeling the need to explain it to anyone. Nikki Reed and Ian Somerhalder. What is the real-life outcome when two stars from iconic vampire franchises find love off-screen? For Nikki Reed and Ian Somerhalder, their magnetic attraction was impossible to ignore, but the controversy that followed was just as powerful. In 2014, merely a year after Ian's public split with his Vampire Diaries co-star Nina Dobrev, he was seen getting very close with Nikki, the Twilight actress, who was also known to be a friend of Nina's. The internet went into an absolute meltdown. Devoted fans shouted betrayal from the rooftops. Tabloid headlines blared stories about Hollywood's nastiest love triangle. However, Nikki and Ian refused to retreat into the shadows. Instead, they embraced their connection completely. They were photographed holding hands at local farmers markets. They shared enigmatic captions on social media, and they looked for all the world like a recklessly blissful couple. All the while, the spectre of their famous exes cast a long shadow. Speculation about a bitter feud between Nikki and Nina ignited online, fueled by fans who couldn't move past Ian's previous relationship. But then, in a completely unforeseen move, Nikki and Nina teamed up to silence the gossip themselves. They published a smiling photo of themselves together, accompanied by a joint statement that dismantled all the dramatic narratives. "There's no bad blood," they declared. "Just love. Let's all move on." It was a stunning power move that nobody anticipated. In an instant, the critics and haters were left with nothing more to say. Ian and Nikki's relationship progressed rapidly. Just 6 months after their romance began, they were married in a private, picturesque outdoor ceremony. There were no publicity stunts, only sincere vows spoken beneath a canopy of trees. In 2017, they joyfully welcomed their daughter, Bodhi Soleil, and shifted their collective energy toward raising their family and championing environmental causes. For Ian, Nikki was more than just his wife. She was his personal sanctuary, and for Nikki, Ian was far from a simple rebound. He represented her second shot at a deep and authentic love. They had been scrutinised, doubted, and dragged through the mud of online gossip. But when all was said and done, they authored their own conclusion, one that was tranquil, empowering, and exquisitely beautiful. Zach Braff and Florence Pugh. What began as a professional collaboration on a short film soon blossomed into a full-fledged romance, igniting an internet firestorm. When Zach Braff, famous for his role in Scrubs, selected Florence Pugh for his 2019 short film, In the Time It Takes to Get There. Neither of them could have predicted that their professional dynamic would evolve into something far more personal and profound. At 24, Florence was one of Hollywood's most rapidly ascending talents, brilliant, courageous, and wonderfully authentic. At 45, Zach was an established industry name, widely recognised for his endearing charm and offbeat sense of humour. But as they began a discreet dating relationship, their 21-year age difference became the sole focus of public conversation. The internet showed no mercy. The public scoffed loudly, mocking memes proliferated. Some critics went so far as to accuse Zach of being a cradle robber. Twitter was set ablaze with side-by-side pictures of Baby Yoda and the ancient Yoda, designed to cruelly lampoon their relationship. The reaction wasn't just uncomfortable, it was genuinely mean-spirited. But Florence, in a move that became iconic, fought back with a powerful Instagram video. Staring unflinchingly into the camera, she stated, "I am 24 years old. I do not need you to tell me who I should and should not love." Her delivery was composed, yet her words sliced directly through the cacophony of judgment. She wasn't seeking anyone's approval. She was unequivocally demanding respect. Zach, for his part, largely avoided public comment, choosing to support her from behind the scenes. He let her command the narrative while he defended their life together through his steady presence, not through public statements. Their love story was never defined by public displays of affection or glamorous red carpet appearances. It was built on quiet moments like Sunday morning coffee runs, intimate birthday celebrations, and a shared passion for creativity. They wrote together, they directed projects, and they created art side by side, protected from the tempest of public opinion by the deep, unspoken certainty of their connection. While some people continue to cast doubt and others have slowly changed their minds for Florence and Zach, public opinion is completely irrelevant. Because as the entire world was busy speculating, they were simply falling in love. Leonardo DiCaprio and Camilla Morrone. When Hollywood's most notorious bachelor finally appeared to settle down, the public didn't celebrate. It started digging for secrets. That's precisely the reaction that unfolded when Leonardo DiCaprio, the perennial single man and Academy Award-winning star, started a relationship with Camilla Morrone, a model and actress a full 23 years younger than him. Their initial connection was quiet, almost imperceptible. They found themselves at the same event in South Beach, Florida, back in 2017. Camilla, who was only 20 at the time, was strikingly poised and mature for her age. Meanwhile, Leo, at 43, had already built a significant reputation for exclusively dating women under the age of 25. Soon after, when they were photographed shopping together in Los Angeles, the internet pieced it together and collectively went into a frenzy. The joke started flying immediately. This moment gave birth to the infamous meme about his girlfriends having a 25-year expiration date. Late-night hosts made it a recurring punchline, while critics dismissed the relationship as predictable and possibly even a calculated arrangement. Yet amidst all the noise and criticism, Leo and Camilla remained completely silent. For the better part of 5 years, they maintained an incredibly private profile. You wouldn't find any grandiose public statements or affectionate posts on Instagram, just occasional glimpses of them on lavish yacht vacations, attending award ceremonies, or sharing quiet meals. In defiance of all the public chatter, their bond appeared to be genuine and remarkably stable. Camilla eventually addressed the public scrutiny in an interview with the Los Angeles Times, stating, "There are so many relationships in Hollywood and throughout history where people have significant age gaps. I really just think anyone should be able to date whoever they want to date." She handled the question with a calm, graceful and untroubled demeanour. But Hollywood is a notoriously fickle town, and it seemed Leo was too. By 2022, right around the time Camilla celebrated her 25th birthday, whispers of a breakup started to circulate. The memes resurfaced with a powerful new wave of intensity. The public reacted with a collective laugh, as if they had been anticipating this very outcome all along. Neither of them ever offered a confirmation. They just faded from the public eye as discreetly as they had first appeared in it. Was their connection real love? Or was it just a matter of convenient timing? Or perhaps was it always destined to be a temporary chapter? Only the two of them will ever truly know. And maybe that is precisely how they always intended it to be. Jay-Z and Beyoncé, they were never just a romantic pair. They were an institution, an empire, an undeniable cultural phenomenon. But concealed behind the polished exterior of Jay-Z and Beyoncé was a love story defined by incredible talent, deep betrayal, and the painstaking effort required to hold it all together. Their journey started in 1999. Beyoncé was a mere 18 years old, already a megastar in the making with Destiny's Child. Jay-Z, approaching 30, was already a celebrated hip-hop magnate carving out his legacy. Their relationship began gradually rooted in friendship first, a detail Beyoncé later shared with Oprah. It wasn't a whirlwind affair, but one built on trust, patience, and countless private conversations. And then their stories spilled into their music. '03 Bonnie and Clyde was much more than a chart-topping single. It was their cleverly coded public debut as a couple. By the time they married in a secret ceremony in 2008, their partnership had become the absolute pinnacle of pop culture. He was the undisputed king of rap. She was a revered global superstar. As a team, they seemed invincible, but that illusion would eventually shatter. Speculation ignited after Beyoncé released her groundbreaking visual album Lemonade in 2016. It was a raw artistic masterpiece about infidelity and righteous anger. Her fans immediately began to analyse every lyric. The world wanted to know who was Becky with the good hair. Was this album a work of fiction or a deeply personal confession? Jay-Z eventually admitted what everyone had assumed. He had not been faithful. And still against all odds, Beyoncé chose to stay. But why this story was about more than just infidelity. It was a story about rebuilding from the ground up, about reinventing their union, and about consciously choosing one another, time and again. Their love transformed from glossy ideal to a testament of survival. In 2017, their family grew when they welcomed their twins Rumi and Sir, joining their first daughter, Blue Ivy. Their artistic expressions evolved, their commitment to activism grew stronger, and their bond, which had once been fractured, healed into something more resilient. Jay-Z and Beyoncé might have started out like a modern fairy tale, but what they ultimately constructed is far more meaningful, a love that shattered and then bravely pieced itself back together. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. On occasion, the most enchanting love stories begin long after the director yells, "Cut." This is the perfect description for the romance between Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. A couple so incredibly charismatic, so quick-witted and so stunningly attractive that they seem to bring a Hollywood rom-com to everyday life. Their narrative kicked off in 2010 while working on the set of Green Lantern, a movie that may have bombed at the box office, but ignited a connection that would prove to be invaluable. Back then, Ryan was married to Scarlett Johansson and Blake was in a relationship with her Gossip Girl castmate Penn Badgley. Nothing romantic transpired between them, at least not then. But destiny had other plans. Fast forward to 2011 and both of them found themselves single again. One evening, they ended up on a double date, but each was there with a different person. However, the magnetic pull between Blake and Ryan was impossible to ignore. As Ryan would later quip, it turned into the most awkward date for their respective partners because sparks were flying between the two of them. After that night, the dynamic shifted entirely. Their relationship progressed quickly but remained intensely private. There were no dramatic tabloid stories, just two people who clearly adored making each other laugh while keeping the public guessing. In 2012, they exchanged vows during a private ceremony in South Carolina. There were no paparazzi helicopters, no official press statements, only their closest friends, family, and a whole lot of love. Their age difference stands at 11 years, yet nobody seemed to raise an eyebrow. Perhaps it was because they made their relationship appear so natural and easy, or maybe it was because the connection they shared had nothing to do with age. Instead, it was built on a shared, vibrant energy, playful teasing, and a mutual appreciation for each other's quirks. Through the years, they have grown their family, welcoming 4 children and solidifying their status as one of Hollywood's most cherished and stable couples. Their banter online is the stuff of legend. It's witty, sharp, and refreshingly genuine. The way they playfully mock each other on social media is pure friendship goals, yet their affection runs as deep as any star-crossed lovers. In Hollywood, where relationships often have a shorter shelf life than a movie's opening weekend, Blake and Ryan represent a true anomaly. They've shown everyone that it's possible to be partners in parenting, best friends who never stop laughing, and passionate lovers, all while building something truly enduring. Now let's talk about Mariah Carey and Brian Tanaka. She is the undisputed diva with a vocal range that defies belief. He was the dynamic dancer who perfectly matched her every move, both in the spotlight and behind the scenes. For this pair, however, their connection was far deeper than a simple showmance. It represented a genuine opportunity for happiness, a fresh start after years of romantic disappointments and the relentless scrutiny that comes with fame. Their paths initially crossed when Brian was just one of the talented performers in Mariah's professional dance ensemble. He was ambitious, gifted, and bursting with energy. She, on the other hand, was an established icon, but one who was nursing fresh emotional wounds. Her highly publicised engagement to the billionaire James Packer had recently imploded, creating a storm of media speculation, followed by a wall of deafening silence from her camp. Absolutely no one predicted that her next romantic chapter would involve a man 14 years her junior, yet it did. In the beginning, they kept their relationship under wraps, so much so that the secrecy itself fueled speculation. The whispers grew louder. Was he just a rebound, a temporary diversion, or perhaps just another story cooked up for the gossip columns? In response, Mariah remained completely silent and Brian was even more tight-lipped. Yet the undeniable spark between them spoke the volumes. Despite this, the naysayers persisted, labelling the relationship as mismatched, rushed, and fundamentally incompatible. But Brian was unwavering. He stood by her through grueling international tours concerning health issues and the endless barrage of judgment from the public eye, proving his commitment time and again. He wasn't there as a security guard or an admirer. He was there as her equal. Mariah would later confess that she deliberately shielded their romance from the world for a very straightforward purpose. She was determined to safeguard what they had. Following a string of highly publicised relationships that had ended badly, she craved something that was hers and hers alone, away from prying eyes. In the end, what truly set this relationship apart wasn't the privacy. It was the quiet tenderness at its core. It was evident in the gentle way Brian gazed at her when the cameras were off. It was in how he championed every part of her. Not just the legendary vocalist, but the real, vulnerable woman behind the icon. A significant amount of time has gone by and the media's focus has moved on to other stories. Yet the couple endures their bond more solid, their life more private, and their connection far more profound than the public ever anticipated. It just goes to show that even when the show is over and the applause fades, true love has the strength to stand on its own. Let's turn our attention to Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra. He was the pop sensation who had captured the hearts of a generation of fans. She was the reigning queen of Indian cinema who had successfully conquered the American entertainment industry. On paper, you would think Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra were from two entirely different worlds, and in many ways from their cultural backgrounds to their career paths and of course their ages they were. Their public narrative kicked off at the 2017 Met Gala, an event they attended on the same arm, both dressed by and invited as guests of the iconic designer Ralph Lauren. Officially, it was just a photo opportunity. No romance blossomed that night, or so they claimed. However, Nick later admitted to making a modern-day first move months earlier, sending a message to her private inbox that read simply, "I think we should connect." It was a confident, straightforward and undeniably audacious play. But the real magic didn't happen until May of 2018, when their connection finally caught fire. It escalated with astonishing speed. In a matter of weeks, they were constantly together, and just a few short months after that, Nick was proposing on one knee against the stunning backdrop of a Cretan sunset, presenting a spectacular ring to the woman a full decade older than him and asking for her hand in marriage. The news sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. While some celebrated the romance, others were quick to criticise and dissect their every move, openly wondering about their true intentions. Pundits condescendingly focused on their age difference, with many implying that Priyanka was past her prime, or that Nick was engaging in a publicity stunt to further his career. Priyanka masterfully retorted in an interview with InStyle magazine, highlighting the glaring hypocrisy. She noted that when the man is older, it's completely accepted and never even mentioned. But reverse the roles and suddenly it becomes a source of controversy and gossip. She had a powerful point and she made it clear she was completely unbothered by the noise. That December in the year 2018, they solidified their union with not one but two magnificent wedding ceremonies that beautifully celebrated both their Indian and American heritages. It was a true merging of cultures and families. The celebrations were undeniably grand, but beneath the spectacle was a feeling of genuine intimacy, profound joy, and a powerful sense of purpose. In the years that followed, they've allowed the public to see snippets of their shared life, from glamorous red carpet appearances to quiet personal snapshots, and in 2022, they welcomed a daughter born via surrogate. Eventually, the chatter died down, and what was left standing was the undeniable truth. Two individuals from vastly different backgrounds who made the conscious choice to love each other openly, without fear, and entirely by their own rules. And now for Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet. Long before he commanded the seven seas as Aquaman, he was simply a kid whose bedroom wall was adorned with a picture of his future wife. For Jason Momoa, finally coming face to face with Lisa Bonet was more than just the fulfillment of a childhood fantasy. You could almost say it was destiny finally catching up with him. He was just a kid, only 8 years old, when he first laid eyes on her lighting up the screen in the iconic Cosby Show, where she brought the unforgettable Denise Huxtable to life. She was the epitome of cool, a bit of a rebel, with a natural radiance that was impossible to ignore. In that moment, he confidently turned to his mother and announced, "I'm going to marry that girl one day." A bold statement that most children would make and quickly forget. But Jason never did. Their worlds finally collided in 2005, brought together by mutual acquaintances at a dimly lit jazz club in Los Angeles. Jason was completely awestruck, struggling to form a coherent sentence. Lisa, in contrast, was poised, intrigued, and clearly entertained by his reaction. When she offered to give him a lift home that night, it marked the beginning of their life together. He essentially never went back to his old one. While they chose to keep their burgeoning romance out of the public eye, the bond they formed was immediate, profound, and undeniable. The 12-year difference in their ages was completely irrelevant. They were perfectly in sync, sharing a bohemian spirit that was artistic grounded and preferred life away from the Hollywood machine, all fueled by an intense passion for each other. They carefully and deliberately built their world together. Soon their family grew with the arrival of 2 children, and they created a home that was less of a celebrity palace and more of a private, sacred haven. For years, Jason publicly referred to her as his wife, a testament to the depth of their commitment long before any legal paperwork was signed. Then in 2017, they made it legally binding, exchanging vows in a deeply personal ceremony, intentionally shielded from the invasive flash of cameras. But even the most idyllic love stories can have an unforeseen final chapter. In 2022, the couple delivered the shocking news that they were separating. The announcement absolutely stunned the public. In a town built on spectacle, Jason and Lisa had become the embodiment of a grounded, soulful partnership in an otherwise chaotic industry. And yet their joint statement was filled with raw honesty and deep respect, stating, "We free each other to be who we are learning to become." There was no public scandal, no bitter accusations, just the quiet, painful process of personal evolution. And perhaps that very maturity is what made their connection so captivating. Their legacy isn't that they lasted forever, but that they embraced a love without compromise and then parted ways with extraordinary grace. Now for Kris Jenner and Corey Gamble, she is the undeniable matriarch and brilliant strategist behind reality television's most influential and powerful dynasty. He was a very low-profile tour manager hailing from Atlanta when they first made their public debut in 2014, and practically no one believed the relationship would last. However, more than a decade down the line, they are still going strong, quietly, stubbornly, and completely unbothered by the initial skepticism. At the time, Kris had just put the final ink on her divorce from Caitlyn Jenner. At 58, she was as glamorous and sharp as ever and unapologetically in command of her life. Corey, who was 33 back then, presented a much more reserved, almost shy persona in comparison. Their bond wasn't some fiery, explosive affair. It was something much calmer, steadier, and carried a curiously intimate quality. Naturally, the public was buzzing with questions. Who exactly was this man? What were his true motives? Was this just a fleeting phase for the famous momager? Well, it's worth noting that even Chris's own daughters were not initially convinced. Kim and Khloe memorably grilled Corey about his intentions on their show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, labelling him as mysterious and even a bit creepy for being so private about his family and his past. But Corey steadfastly refused to take the bait. He never made a play for the spotlight. He didn't spill his secrets for headlines. He just remained right by Chris's side, loyal, present, and fiercely protective. And as time went on, the family's attitude began to soften. Kim started to speak of him in glowing terms. He proved he was there not just for the camera crews, but for real life. He showed up for birthdays, holidays, and all of the small, significant moments that truly matter. Of course, their 25-year age difference was a topic that was difficult to overlook. Pundits often joked that he was closer in age to her daughters than to Chris herself, but she never once offered an apology for loving a younger man. And Corey, in turn, never gave her any reason to feel that she had to. As for marriage, they've never seemed to be in a rush. When it comes to having kids, they are well beyond that chapter in their lives. What they share is something quieter than a sensational headline, but perhaps all the more enduring for it. Because within a family whose entire empire was constructed in front of cameras, sometimes the most profound and radical form of love is the one that flourishes quietly off screen. Let's move on to Chris Pratt and Katherine Schwarzenegger. He was Hollywood's go-to funny guy, America's sweetheart, who was still navigating the fallout from a very high-profile divorce. She was the sophisticated, elegant daughter of American royalty with a last name that everyone recognises. So when Chris Pratt and Katherine Schwarzenegger began their romance in 2018, it was a pairing that caught everyone completely by surprise. But there was one very influential person who did see it coming, her mother, Maria Shriver. The accomplished journalist activist, and yes, a member of the Kennedy clan, was actually the one who played matchmaker. It was on her recommendation that she introduced her daughter to Chris following his separation from actress Anna Faris. It started out quietly and casually, but an undeniable spark was there, and within just a few months their relationship became quite serious. And then came the now famous gym date. Before he got down on one knee, Chris knew he had to get the seal of approval from the ultimate future father-in-law, the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger. And what could be a better way to connect with the Terminator himself than through a challenging shared workout? We're talking incline presses, heavy weights, the whole 9 yards. And it absolutely worked. Arnold later quipped on a national television show, "He's a smart guy. He picked the right exercise." Despite their 10-year age difference, the couple appeared to be perfectly in sync with one another. Katherine seemed to bring a sense of grace and grounding that perfectly complemented Chris's more goofy, fun-loving charm. In return, he introduced a constant stream of laughter and warmth into her more reserved and quieter world. Together, they just felt incredibly balanced. In June of 2019, they officially tied the knot during a beautifully understated California ceremony surrounded by their closest friends, family, and of course, a few Hollywood giants. There was no tabloid drama, no red carpet spectacle, just genuine love, the real kind. The couple now shares a daughter and maintains a deeply private family life, intentionally steering clear of the intense spotlight that once followed Chris's every move. And maybe in the end, that privacy and genuine connection is precisely what made this particular love story stick. Because every so often, the perfect match isn't discovered on a movie set or at a glamorous industry party, but through the quiet, insightful matchmaking of a mother who simply knows best. Now for Scott Disick and Sophia Richie. He was the personification of charming chaos on reality television. She was the fashion industry's new golden girl, and not to mention the daughter of absolute music royalty. So when Scott Disick and Sophia Richie officially went public as a couple, the internet didn't just blink, it completely detonated with opinions. At the time, Scott was 36 and still reeling from the aftermath of his famously tumultuous on-again, off-again rollercoaster relationship with Kourtney Kardashian, the mother of his 3 children. Sophia, by contrast, was just 21 years old, undeniably stylish, wide-eyed, and had essentially been raised under the very same glaring media spotlight. She was famously one of Kylie Jenner's best friends, and they were often photographed in matching outfits or clinking glasses together at exclusive poolside parties. Therefore, when Sophia and Scott's relationship shifted from friendship to something more, the situation immediately felt incredibly complicated. It wasn't just because of their notable 15-year age gap, but because of how uncomfortably close to the Kardashian-Jenner inner circle it all was. Rumours immediately began to fly. Was this simply a rebound for Scott? Was it all an elaborate publicity stunt? Even Sophia's own famous father, the legendary Lionel Richie, publicly voiced his deep concerns, telling Us Weekly, "I'm scared to death." He added, "She's too young." Naturally, the tabloids had a field day with this drama. Hordes of paparazzi relentlessly pursued them through airports on private yachts and onto hotel balconies. Every single shared glance and every whispered word was twisted into a sensational headline. However, there was a strange and genuine conviction in his words that seemed to linger. Even with all the public scrutiny and chaos surrounding them, Scott and Sophia were seriously discussing the possibility of marriage. They took trips together with his children, and she was introduced to the entire family. For a fleeting moment, it genuinely seemed as if the famously chaotic bad boy of Calabasas had finally met his perfect, though completely unexpected, princess. But we all know that fairy tale endings scripted under the harsh glare of camera flashes are exceptionally rare. As expected, by 2020, the intense flame of their romance had completely burned out. Soon after, Sophia quietly vanished from the Kardashians' inner circle and Scott retreated from the public eye. And just like that, the most improbable and talked about couple in the history of reality television simply closed their chapter. Their story was a whirlwind, tumultuous, incredibly fast-paced, and absolutely impossible to forget. It serves as a powerful reminder that some romances aren't destined for a lifetime, but are meant to be so explosive and captivating that they echo in our memories forever.